2025 now in session. Please rise. Allegiance to the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Call the roll. Members online, please state while you are attending virtually.
Member Belton,
Here.
Please, Jennifer, please tell us why, I know. Go ahead.
Good.
Councilmember Desillugi. Here. Moranti.
Here.
Mizan.
Yeah.
Moore. Here. Kernhagen.
Here.
Robert.
Here.
Brownie.
Here, I'm also very sick.
Sarwar.
Yeah.
Bola.
Here.
President DiPietro.
Here.
Warren Park.
I have an introduction in a second to dispense with reading of the minutes of the 7th, 15th, 22nd, and 30th meetings. Introduction in a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Similarly, can I have an introduction in a second to place committee reports on file? Introduction, Dewan, Gershon, second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We have communications from the police department and from the auditor for the 2023 audit. Can I have an introduction in a second to receive the communication? Shusha and Dewan. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Okay, let's start with the resolutions from last week. Okay, you want to start posting them, please? The first resolution is appointing commissioners of fees. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Desillugi. Aye. Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Aye. Kernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Brownie.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Bola.
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Here.
The next one, from last week, is support of the Dignity Not Detention Act. I will call vote. Please.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Desillugi. Aye. Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Aye. Kernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Brownie.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Bola.
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Here.
The next resolution supports the rent emergency stabilization preparedness act support. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Desillugi.
Yes, I want to say that although I can understand somebody being hesitant in voting something that we don't have in front of us, the actual resolution, I feel that stabilization of the rents will be good for the whole community. And not just tenants, but for everybody. And at 2% is very reasonable. So I would like to vote yes.
Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris.
On this one, I have been trying to get more information. It is still in committee. And the piece to the legislation that I am mostly concerned about is the current legislation. Yes, it needs to be updated because it only goes, doesn't cover the most recent 15 years. Has a requirement that you do a vacancy study, and there are guidelines for it. Even with that in place, municipalities attempting, Kingston, I believe, was one, attempting to opt in, were sued, and were not successful in those lawsuits. And so this legislation now has a very vague guidance on what constitutes how you can declare a housing emergency. It just talks about using publicly available information, but it doesn't define it. It doesn't have any clear, like, roadmap on what would constitute a valid set of information that would allow you to declare a housing emergency. And I think without having the detail on how that actually works, that I don't have enough information either to support or not support this. The other piece, which we heard last week, is that the boards, it seemed when we first talked about it, when Crystal was talking about it, that that would be at the county level. But the speaker last week said that this would be at the municipality level. So I think, again, I'd like clarity on that, because trying to put together a rent monitoring board in small municipalities with people who have appropriate experience and training to actually do that, I think that's not an easy lift. And so absent more information on the legislation itself, I get that rent stabilization is something that people are in favor of it. There are pros and cons to it. I lived in rent stabilization myself for a number of years. But just right now, I feel I don't have enough information, and this law has not yet been fully scoped out, still in committee. And there are too many things that have not been defined. So for that reason, I'm going to abstain tonight.
Aye. Ronnie,
Aye.
Starwar,
Aye.
Volo,
Also, I know many people who have rent stabilized apartments. I know many people who have rent stabilized, lived in Manhattan for over 20 years. And I know many people who have rent stabilized apartments and also have houses up here upstate. And that's a lot of the reason why they don't register up here, because they have a rent stabilized apartment that they can't let their landlord know that they're no longer living in. So rent stabilization is great once you're in, but those people do not give up their apartments, even regardless of income. They will go on to make 6-figure more salaries and keep their rent stabilized apartment as their parents have in New York. So my point is that it's not the panacea that we might think it is. As a landlord myself, I know that if there's going to be a rent cap, but yet there's no cap necessarily on the property taxes of the rebound, there's no cap on the school taxes. Everyone knows that repairs are labor and materials that are not inexpensive. And right now, with interest rates, it's not that if you hold a mortgage, you can just refinance for a lower interest rate. So there's many pluses and minuses, and I do feel that a lot of small landlords will just sell their properties, which will limit the number of rentals that are available, because it's easier to just sell than, especially if you have a single family house, than to be capped as the amount of rent. And your landlords are not going to lose money. They will just sell, especially if it's single family. Then you'll see less apartments on the rental market. There's pluses and minuses, and I think that really we need to think of all of that. There have to be certain. We have to look into the rent cap board, how they're selected, how they're appointed. There's too many question marks. So I'm going to say this.
Aye. Sooner or later for the press staff. So you're late, yes. You're welcome to stay. It's fine.
You don't want to see the medals?
The next resolution accepts donations on behalf of the fire department. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton,
Aye.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts. Roni.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Vola. President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution is in support of the Access to Representation Act and the Build Act. Jennifer?
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out. Aye.
Oh, wait.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranti.
I'd like to see more lobbying also with the same concept for access representation for tenants when they have to fend for themselves and they can't afford an attorney, and legal aid is hit and miss for our tenants. So for this, yes, but I think we should also take it a little further and look at how we can have the same concept for our tenants when it comes to evictions.
A side note on the Housing Trust Fund is doing exactly that right now. Given that with the new budget, there's been money allocated to defense and activities. So what we look at.
Well,
Thank you.
Let me know if I can help, because that's great.
Sure.
Mizan. Morris.
Aye.
Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts. Roni.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Vola.
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution.
Go.
The next resolution amends the firefighter service awards program listing. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton,
Aye.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan. Morris. Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts. Roni.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Vola.
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution approves the Big Valley Spa license. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Belton,
Aye.
Castelli. Moranti.
I think we need to have some changes in the contract. There's some wording in there that doesn't make sense. I think it was the last sentence in number 4. It mentions something to do with a boat. And 8D has something in there about paddle boats, canoes, and I don't think that's appropriate for this contract.
We're,
Can you make it larger, motions?
yeah,
Trying to confirm.
Last line in number 4, something about a tour boat.
No, number 4.
I never point out.
Yeah, it's item 4. There it is. Licensee further may not change the use of the licensed premises from tour boats without prior written consent. And what is that about?
Unless we have a tour boat in Oakdale, I don't know if that's appropriate.
Sounds like a cut and paste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I think that's the other, but also this was one of the ones I got opening today, Tom. Is it in here that they are going to pay for electricity used?
Yes.
That got fixed?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like,
I have a feeling that in there because of the model that was used. Crystal, can you speak to this, you know?
Yep, so if you look at the number one under the fee, that was changed where the license includes $200 towards electricity usage, but anything over that is going to be paid by the licensee. And it also changed the fee agreement to specify that it is a per month fee.
Could you go to the section that Crystal was talking about, because I was not able to open it?
The first section or what?
Okay, now I can see it. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
And the other section was 8D. It referenced paddle boats, canoes, and kayaks.
Yeah, I apologize for that. That's a carryover from a prior license agreement.
We could just strike that.
Leave it up to blind guy to find it. Also, it didn't say anything about water usage. Are they using water or just electric? And also, it didn't say anything about restrooms. Is there gonna be restrooms? Are they gonna use porta potties?
Well, how can you measure the water though? Nobody has a,
No, but if they use water, right, we could charge a quarterly fee for water, right?
I
As a
don't think
resident,
they use any water.
right, I don't know if they do, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
In wintertime, it should be shut off, from my understanding, usually the water shut off.
yeah.
But in terms of like restrooms is there gonna be restrooms? Or is there gonna be outhouses? Porta potties? Under sanitation code.
I don't have an answer to that. I have to go back and look at their presentation.
Do you happen to know, Dominic, if the water down there is metered, or what is that?
The water is not metered.
It's not metered, no. It's just like ours, it's
It is,
quarterly,
it's a quarter?
right, it's just like
But
quarterly,
there are some metered.
right.
Okay.
But I think at the waterfront, when they were at the waterfront, they were using water for a tub,
Yeah, there are.
right? So it doesn't mention anything about using water at, this site. Or other utilities that they're using, and also I'm curious about, the restroom factor, so.
The restroom is not a public restroom.
But that,
That restroom is not a public restroom.
it's not ADA compliant, so it shouldn't be used, and they can't be open because it's not ADA compliant. So during the summer, they have porta potties that are ADA compliant. But I think they go away when summer program's over in August. So I don't know if we can find the answers to this, if it's not to November, if we have to vote for that.
Maybe we could take it back and bring it back to the council for vote.
Okay, so we'll table it. Yeah. I have a motion to table the resolution. Second.
Motion to table, or second.
All right. All those in favor of tabling the resolution, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Maybe we should have a roll call vote on this, but it doesn't get a strong sense.
Consider,
Okay?
I'm to say that.
No, roll call vote on the motion to table. I didn't really hear it, but, so. Roll call vote on the motion to table this resolution.
Table. Councilmember Dalton,
Aye, but I will say one thing. I do remember her saying that she paid for porta potties.
I don't know, I'm actually confused because if we take this whole idea of is this ADA compliant? The whole big town, I don't know if it is ADA compliant, does it need to be the ADA compliant? I mean, I don't think the business is, does it have to be ADA compliant?
Yeah.
I mean-
If we're offering a service on city
Well, the
city
city-
properties, if we're offering a contract on city property, then it needs to be ADA compliant.
The issue is that city property.
It is.
It is a city property and it has to be ADA compliant, and I don't think it is. I mean,
Well, that's why we have in the summertime, for the playgrounds, that's why we have porta potties that are ADA compliant. Right? Because we have to have access.
I think we need the Crystal to give us her opinion.
I know the spas are ADA, their spas are ADA compliant. They have a ramp.
Spas are ADA compliant.
Right.
I don't, and I looked at I pulled up her presentation and it's actually silent with respect to bathrooms. So I can't provide any response on that. I don't know what she was using, but we can get that information.
Her letter to us, Crystal, said that providing porta potties.
There's no urgency
I
on this, so.
remember that.
Yeah, we could table it. Yeah, we could table this, yeah.
Okay, yes,
Trustworthy,
yeah,
Moranti,
Aye.
Morris. Aye. Mizan.
Aye.
Kernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Rowing.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Bola.
Aye.
President DePietro.
Aye. We'll get back to that. Good question, answer. ADA, porta potties, and.
Order.
I don't see a lot of time. Okay, the next resolution approves the Hudson Athens Lighthouse license agreement. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Trustworthy,
I,
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan. Morris. Aye. Kernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Rowing.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Bola. President DePietro.
Aye.
Okay.
The next resolution, finalizes the sale of Montgomery Street. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton.
Jennifer? We can't hear you, gotta hear you.
Sorry, aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan. Morris. Aye. Kernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Rowing.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Bola.
Aye.
President DePietro.
Aye.
Here.
The next resolution, approves our agreement with, county over the CAD class, system. That we're gonna share with them. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton.
Aye.
Trustworthy. Aye. Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan. Morris. Aye. Kernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Rowing.
Aye.
Sarwar.
Aye.
Bola.
Aye.
President DePietro.
Aye.
Carry.
The next resolution supports the New York for All. Jennifer? you
I
hear
can't,
me?
I can't hear you guys.
Oh, sorry, the New York for All Act.
Are we doing a vote?
Yes.
Aye.
Trustworthy. Aye. Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Aye. Kernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Sarver,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
Resolution increases funding the rates in the short-term municipal lots. Although call vote, please.
Councilmember Belton,
Aye.
Castelli. Aye. Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Fernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Sarver,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
And then last of the resolutions from last week is approving the ADA compliance contract. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Belton,
Aye.
Castelli. Aye. Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan,
Aye.
Morris. Aye. Fernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Sarver,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, new resolutions. The first one called upon New York Power Authority to increase plan as some targets. Excuse me, introduction and second. Warren Schurhouse. Questions, comments?
So, who did this come from? And somebody explaining the intention here?
I think it's here in the theme, isn't it?
I know this is one of the ones I couldn't open, so I'm trying to read.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to scroll somewhere.
This came from a group in, advocating for New York renewables.
This isn't CNC.
No,
No. So where did it come from?
I think I
Where
guess
did it come from?
I could hear, I think you could, I said it came from a group advocating New York renewables.
And what does this do?
This supports, it asks, it advocates on behalf of,
Can we go down to the last part, Robert?
groups.
Okay. Increase the plant capacity targets to at least 15 gigawatts. New publicly owned renewables.
If you want to take a look, CNC will look at it.
Yeah, so we understand what exactly we're talking
I don't know.
Yeah, what is this actually?
I know. That's why we sent them out early to.
I never did it, but I
Motion
did
table
it.
it. Motion table, one. Rich.
I'd like
All
to
in favor?
table it.
I'm sorry, what?
I
We
said
got it
I'd
on
like to table it.
Okay, we, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, moving on. This is approved, next resolution approving the creation of the principal account claim. For the, this is switching,
So there's another piece.
yeah. For the, parking bureau.
So this does, oh, what-
Introduction, secondly, Ron?
so this is,
Give me a second.
Thank you, guys.
First shot. Okay, got it.
so this costs for the $49,000, the $50,000 for this. It's not, is it a new position?
No.
Or we just changing
Changing
that,
the title.
that name?
I
Yeah.
know, yeah.
So that it's 50,000 and it will not increase.
It's a new
Yeah.
addition to the police department, but it's not really a new position.
It's no extra.
No,
That's right.
just changing the titles.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Councilmember Dalton,
Aye.
Jaskowitz,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Fernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Roney,
Aye.
Sarver,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution authorizes a CHIPS budget amendment. As I recall, it's just shifting. Oh, no, it's just,
So, is Heather on?
there she is.
Yes, I am.
Heather?
Yes.
Yeah, can you just give a quick explanation?
Wait, hold on a second. Can I get an introduction second first? Margaret and Tricia. Go ahead, Heather.
Okay, so basically, I believe there's an attachment to this which will demonstrate this, but these are 5 different programs that are revenue neutral. We add them to the revenues for incoming grants and we match them with expenditures. So you can see that's why each one has a revenue and expenditure line. We make an estimate at the beginning of the budget, but it's basically around April or May when New York State actually provides the documentation that says this is actually how much you have allocated from each of these programs. So literally what you have in front of you is the amount that New York State has said has been set aside for each of those 5 programs for the city of Hudson for 2025. So this just amends the budget to reflect that both in the revenue and the expenditure lines. Doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to get spent, but whatever we spend, we will be reimbursed with the grant money.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then call vote, please.
Councilmember Dalton,
Aye.
Jaskowitz,
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan. Morris,
Aye.
Fernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Roney,
Aye.
Sarver,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
Next resolution is very controversial. It reappoints Gary Kernhagen to the public works board. And introductions. Any other second one?
Who's Gary?
Well, vote, please, unless there's some mistakes.
Are you going to, vote no, Gary?
Just Mike.
You might.
We didn't include his salary though.
Yeah.
We'll go vote.
Councilmember Dalton,
Aye.
Jaskowitz,
Aye.
Moranti,
Well, Gary, it's a pleasure having you doing what you do, and it's a pleasure you say aye.
Mizan,
Aye, and congratulations.
Morris, Fernhagen,
And I'd just like to say that, it's been a privilege working with, particularly, the ADA coordinator, Justin Weaver, and the, new commissioner of public works, Tyler, Kretzman. These guys are, their heads are in the right place and they're looking to do the right things. So, they've been able to make this, as smooth as it has been. So again, thank you.
Roney,
Aye.
Sarver,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution renews the Meeting Collab contract. The planning board uses currently to
Can you make it a bit bigger over?
Their great satisfaction. Can I have an introduction in a second, please? Prashant? And Whitman? Conversation, questions? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Dalton,
Aye.
Castellini,
Aye.
Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Kernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Roni,
Aye.
Sauer,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
President DePietro,
Aye.
carried.
The next resolution. Authorizes the mayor to enter an agreement with Spy and Bruno for their services for covering delinquent property taxes. Can I have an introduction, Margaret and Vicky? Any questions?
I can explain to people what this is because I wrote this. So Vicky has been working very diligently on trying to get attorneys identified who would work with the city on collecting delinquent taxes. And we did get a response from this company, Divine and Bruno. So this is just a really simple resolution authorizing the mayor to engage, to contract with this attorney. And I put in from the scope of work what their services will include, which is notification, collection, and where appropriate, commencement of legal proceedings. The attachment to this, the document that we received was truncated, but it had just without a miscellaneous section where it got truncated. I'm sure that the full document will be part of the contract. I don't know, Crystal, if you saw the full document, but the scope of work and the fees were included in what we got. And so and Heather is also working on the list of properties that would come under that. So that's all this is moving forward with looking at collecting taxes.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Dalton,
Aye.
Castellini,
Aye.
Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Kernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Roni,
Aye.
Sauer,
Aye.
Volo,
I would also just like to thank Vicky for finding those lawyers and for moving this project forward. We're looking at $2.5 million and I said,
President DePietro, carried.
The next resolution are transfers within DPW. Do I have an introduction, a second? Michelle. Laura? And Dylan. Questions?
Yeah, I'd like Heather to explain this. So we're moving,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, it's Heather, can you just walk us through exactly what is being moved?
I'm not sure Heather would have any special insight, but it's pretty obvious. Moving personal services, which is account for employees, to the building account for City Hall.
And why? Did we over budget for personal services?
Well, that's always been the question, hasn't it?
I mean, I can't speak to the first one at all. I can speak to the second one, which is basically we budgeted for not knowing when National Grid. So as you know, a year ago, we purchased our lamp fixtures, the street lamp fixtures, so that we could convert them to LED. And we did not know how long it would be before National Grid recognized the fact that we shouldn't be paying for the rental anymore. Conversely, at the same time, as you may all know, National Grid has come in and very conveniently, right after we purchased all the poles, purchased all the fixtures, decided to replace the poles. When they replace the poles, they take the fixtures off and they leave them lying on the ground. So the city has to pay to put our now owned fixtures back onto the National Grid new poles. So this basically takes the money out from the money we had set aside to pay for the pole rental, because we were being kind of conservative, not knowing how long before they recognized that, and moves it to the account that you see in order to pay the electrician to come and reattach the fixtures.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Roll call, vote, please.
Councilmember Belton,
Aye.
Sassaludi.
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Fernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts. Roni,
Aye.
Sarwar,
Aye.
Volo.
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
We're going to skip the next one, that's related to the executive session. The next, number 22, authorizing agreement with TP Mail Environmental Services. This is for work that's being done under the grant received by the housing trust fund, I guess, or anyway, the grant that's being administered by Michelle Duval. The $500,000 grant. And this is just the group that does the environmental testing. Can I have an introduction and second, please? Tricia, second. One, questions?
So this here, this is like for this, we are kind of hiring this company to check on houses if they have lead and
Right.
all that. But what houses? Whose houses?
The
Like
house
the whole
is
city?
chosen.
Oh, they're
in the
chosen.
process, yes.
So
Where
who
you-
chose the houses?
Excuse me?
Who chose the houses?
They haven't done it yet.
Okay,
Haven't been done yet.
so if
I believe you were on the committee last time.
I was last time,
So I
but
assume
that's
you're
a
gonna be on
year.
this one too.
So it's again the same
That's
house?
the same, no,
No, so they're new houses.
right.
Okay, so I'm just saying, I don't know, I'm not in that,
You know we can't.
I haven't been updated.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't, I don't think they've selected.
Okay. So there's a group of houses that we're gonna check, okay, and we need to see if they have lead or,
And how are the houses like?
I think there was, was
I think
that
they applied,
they,
and then the committee,
we select, yeah, no. So first, there was a questionnaire that you have to fill up and an application. And I think it was a certain income, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And all of them, they were in a very bad shape, actually.
Yeah.
And we selected which ones are crucial,
Yeah.
more people living,
Yeah.
elder, couple of elder ones, yeah. It was, and you didn't know who he was. It was all anonymous, so,
Got it.
I mean, I didn't.
okay, roll call vote please.
Councilmember Belton,
Aye.
Sassaludi.
Aye.
Moranti,
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Fernhagen,
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Roni,
Aye.
Sarwar,
Aye.
Volo,
Aye.
President DiPietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution, is further authorization for the foreclosure proceedings that we've already discussed. This is for the city treasurer to file with the county clerk the list of
Properties.
properties that are affected. Can I have an introduction in a second, please? Margaret and Tricia, questions?
So it seems to me that there are some small ones, and that's,
There's some that are like 70 cents.
yeah, and there are some, there are quite a lot that they're small, then there's some that are huge,
Yeah.
150,000.
Oh, it's higher than that.
What is this like? I don't even know if it's one individual or is it a company?
Yeah,
No, it's unbelievable. Some of them are companies, LLCs.
So when I was talking this through with Heather, and Heather jump in here,
Mhm.
so ordinarily, she would be going through, you'd retain a lawyer initially, and then she would work with the lawyer and go through, identify which properties that they wanted to pursue. And so obviously there are some on here with very de minimis kinds of things, that it's just a penalty, whatever. So her next step would be to work with the lawyer to go through exactly what.
So, for
Some
example,
people
the night,
Some people will negotiate, pay over time.
okay,
There's-
the one of the 98 paddock, which we've been talking for.
Yeah.
That's listed
It's
in
listed under City of Hudson.
Yeah,
There's
because you
no-
technically own it.
We are the owners,
That's
but
what
we
we
don't
were-
list. So there are a few of those. I
Yeah.
noticed there are,
Yeah.
yeah.
So-
Okay,
Is there any limit, so you're gonna go after from that certain amount of money, or just, like, some small amount, someone pays, so is there?
No, they're going to everything. And I think some people, when they see it, will just pay and they realize. that they're-
Yeah, I think they're just gonna, even now that it's publicized, you probably, some people are gonna be paying for it, paying it. So they don't get the letter.
so I guess we're gonna know later on the process. What happens if somebody cannot pay, or they can do installments, all that stuff that attorney will.
And they can't do installments either, then you go further.
Yeah, okay.
Sadly, huh?
Okay, we'll figure this out.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bellison,
Aye.
Castelli,
Hi,
Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Brownie.
Aye.
Sarver. Bola.
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
The next resolution is a transfer of the budget line from parking to clerks and related to the to ensure that the parking bureau is properly supported. Can I have an introduction in a second? Rashad and,
Jennifer second.
oh, okay, Jennifer. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bellison,
Aye.
Castelli. Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris. Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Brownie.
Aye.
Sarver.
Aye.
Bola.
Aye.
President Pietro.
Aye.
Carried.
So before we go into executive session, just a couple other matters.
Well, we have the bills.
That's the other matter.
Oh, okay.
The first are the bills. Can I get an introduction and a second to pay the bills? Vicky? And Trisha? Questions? No questions? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bellison,
Aye.
Castelli.
Aye.
Moranti.
Aye.
Mizan.
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Fernhagen.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Brownie.
Aye.
Sarver.
Aye.
Bola.
Aye.
President Pietro.
Excuse me. At one point, the bills say the appraisal is 5,500, and if this is the same appraisal of resolution, it's 5,600.
Correct. That will be dependent on passing the resolution.
So what is it, 56 or 55?
Oh, there's two different numbers?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I know we passed this, but
Sure. Oh, Crystal, can you speak to that? You know?
If there's an appraisal on these bills, it would have been from a
We
prior
can't hear Kristen.
resolution for a different appraisal, not for the one that the resolution's before the council tonight.
Okay, Crystal, we couldn't hear you at all.
I think she said that's not for the same one.
It's not the same, that is not for the resolution. That is not an appraisal for the resolution that's on tonight. That is a prior authorized appraisal under for a different property.
We already authorized that.
What's happening to the?
Yes. When we look at that, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so before we go into session and deal with the other resolution, can I have an introduction and a second to finally put this ADA law on our desk? ADU, I mean. Introduction, Ron and Tricia. Okay, it's officially on our desk, now it goes through the process.
So Crystal, there's just one thing that you and I have discussed. And it's, I think it's in section, if you scroll down, over. It's the, go down in front of. Hang on. It's where it talks, it's section G. No, sorry, you were on it, Logan, go back up. It's out. Alteration, yeah, so this was the issue that we discussed about retaining the exterior appearance of the single family dwelling as viewed from the street. And we had talked about the fact that there was strong interest in having language that would say that it could only be built to the side or the rear. And I think you were going to add language.
Yes,
related
it's
to
I.
that.
It's number I, it's letter I.
Yep, it's been added to I.
Got it, perfect. I was expecting, I had trouble downloading today. I was expecting to see it under G, so that's great. That was the only thing I was looking at for. Thank you.
So, with that, I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss a matter of litigation. Tricia and Dewan, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed. So let's see,